Hello, my fellow subjects. It's been a while, but at long last, I got some realistic CK3 here for ya. It may not look like it in some ways, but at least around Constantinople, I feel like I've had an authentic experience leading up to this moment. If you aren't aware, I'm playing with a mod list to enhance the roleplay experience in Crusader Kings 3 by limiting the information you know about people, making medieval life more harsh, and having more uppity vassals for harder realm management, and a bunch of other tweaks for realism. How does that play out? Well, previously, I started as Strategos Alexios, the governor of Bulgaria, who spent his life scheming and building friendships to set up his son Michael to put the Palaiologos on the throne in Constantinople. Michael built on the power his father cultivated to lead a movement that would make him the Basileus and later attempt to restore imperial control over Anatolia. But soon after he set off, the realm was engulfed by a terrible plague. Sensing weakness, the neighboring Byzantine Empire began their own invasion of Byzantium. Such troubles would have broken many other realms, but Michael was forged from finer metals and stood against his enemies, subduing the Turks in Anatolia, unruly peasants in the homeland, and even beating the Arabs back in battle. But he couldn't deal with every foe on the battlefield, and his son Zacharias took charge. Scared of sharing the same fate, Zach stayed close to home, but that made him a sitting duck for a rival family. And within a few months of getting the crown, Zacharias was murdered in broad daylight. His son, Gregorios, was considered too young to inherit any of Zach's titles, so the young child wanders Constantinople with no land to his name. He is bitter about being robbed of his destiny, swearing revenge on the man who killed his father, and dreams of one day taking back what's rightfully his. Unfortunately, as a child, there is little Gregorios can do. Until he's an adult, he can't scheme. But when that day comes, he won't waste any time to do what's right. For now, he just tries to have as normal of a childhood as possible. As he roams the halls of his manor, his eyes keep falling on a servant his age named Margarita. He knows that he shouldn't be having any sort of romantic interest with a woman of her class, but his heart tells him to go after her. Perhaps that's why God separated man's heart from his brain, so he could have the passion to pursue what makes him happy. While the adults are doing adult business, I'm trying to make friends in Constantinople by inviting a bunch of other kids to play with me. We're having a good time playing games like soccer, but during the game, a fight breaks out between the teams. It's complete chaos, but I stick up for my own. I save another kid named Isakios from getting trampled. We become good friends, and I become strong. I would need this strength for what happened next. My brother Michael jumped in a pond, but didn't know how to swim. Every second mattered here, so without hesitation, I jumped in the water to save him. Soon I grabbed Michael's body and dragged him to shore, saving his life. After that unforgettable experience, it was time to wrap up the playtime and send my guest home. As Greg grew, so did his relationship with Margarita. They started talking about a future together, and Greg promised that when he was older, he would marry Margarita despite the pressure against it. Soon, I would begin a charm offensive against her to make sure she knew I was serious. At 16, Greg had turned out alright, well balanced in traits and mainly focusing on intrigue to be able to plot his revenge against Strategos Antonios. But in addition to wanting revenge, Greg also wanted Antonius's land since obfusCKate is a wealthy area. As I campaigned to make myself the heir of this land, I continued to woo Margarita. I told her I was defending her dreams from demons, method unpatched by the way, and helped her escape an unskippable cutscene from our emperor. Right after that, as Greg was walking through the manor, he saw some sort of figure trying to break into Margarita's chambers. Obviously, I couldn't let my love come in harm's way, so I rushed to save her. When I arrived, I saw the intruder was armed, but that didn't make me hesitate. I fought and subdued this burglar and promised Margarita I would never let her be in harm's way again. It was at that moment she realized I was very serious about my intentions and we became soulmates. Next, I successfully challenged Antonius's status in public to get the influence needed for me to be the top candidate for obfusCKate. After that, I finally fulfilled my promise to Margarita and put a ring on her finger. Of course, my decision is looked down upon by society, but nevertheless, I do it anyways. When the ceremony ended, it was time to plan my revenge. I got a scheme together to finally avenge my father, and while the plans were put together, my first son and heir was born. I named him after my father to honor him. Anyways, after a while, my scheme had built up enough advantages in planning that I felt comfortable taking a swing at Antonius. My conspirators hit him with a classic, poisoning his drink. Poor Antonius chose the wrong day to ask for more wine, and quickly after finishing his glass, the poison finished him. Despite the suspicious nature of his death, nobody suspects a thing about me, and I get all his titles without any controversy. Greg's ambitions don't stop there though. There is still an emperor's throne to retake. Looking at our current Basilius, who is sick, struggling financially, and has quite a few enemies in the countryside, this is definitely doable. I start my own claimant faction and immediately get a few supporters who remember how the Paleologos held the empire together 20 years ago. As word spreads of me trying to put the Paleologos back on the throne, I get more support. The nobility know they'll get the stability they desire under my crown. After creating an alliance with the other branch of my family in Bulgaria, I'm getting a good feeling about my odds. On the 18th of August, 1254, I demanded Ionis III to hand the Byzantine throne to me, and the man didn't take it well. I quickly assembled my army to march to Constantinople, and my allies soon joined me in besieging the area. The Emperor's loyalist armies didn't dare to oppose us here, so over the next few months we besieged Constantinople. Greg goes home to visit his wife, and at nighttime, he hears someone at the window. Apparently, Count Leon of Raska was trying to take advantage of my absence during the Civil War to steal my wife from me, but I made sure to put him on blast. There were no decisive battles during this war. My armies just occupied the Thrace area while the cowardly emperor fled the area and stewed about it from a distance. After a while, Ionis finally came to his senses and gave me what I deserved. Finally, the Paleologos were back on the throne, but for some reason I didn't get Constantinople and the rest of Thrace with it. Across the empire though, people were happy to see me on the throne, hoping for a continuation of the competence Michael VIII was known for. As for the previous emperor Ionis, he will be expelled and marked so he carries this failure for the rest of his life. With that man gone, his daughter was technically left in charge, but obviously this little girl can't be running Thrace, so I took her titles to be under better leadership. After that, I could re-establish my capital at Constantinople. Everything is now back to how it should be, but my wife Margarita can't help but be a bit worried about the road I took to get here. She's actually scared of me. Here I am, becoming a victim of my own success, but I reassure her that everything I've done has been for her benefit. Now it's time to continue my grandfather's mission of expanding the Byzantine Empire back to its previous greatness. Pontus was a big annoyance for my grandpa, and it is time for them to go. As my armies prepare to march, my patriarch pitches the idea of establishing religious militias to enforce adherence to the Orthodox faith. Everyone else on the council, along with my wife, hated the idea, so I said no, which led me to be overcome with stress. I thought I'd be okay at this level, but that stress really came around to bite me and caused me to become infirm at the ripe old age of 33. This war could easily be managed by someone else. Greg needed a proper vacation to relax, so he went to a nearby hot spring. On his way there, a religious fanatic makes an attempt on his life, but fortunately, Greg is able to use his intrigue skill to make a getaway. The challenges continue to mount up on our emperor with news from the west. Apparently, the Catholics are scheming to overthrow me and destroy the Byzantine Empire in the name of some Count Bernard of Bresse. Despite everything we've done to defend Christendom, we are being betrayed. On May 24th, 1264, those bastards officially declared their crusade to take me down, and we braced for the invasion. It's already bad enough that this reconquest of Pontus is taking forever because they keep unsieging the provinces. But with all this happening, unhappy subjects are having rebellious thoughts that I need to be wary about. It's not just the peasants that are organizing, I have nobles organizing against me too. Seeing what the stress of this job has done to me, Strategos Kairos doesn't think I'm fit to protect the Empire from the Crusaders, so he has organized a faction to put Strategos Theodosius on the throne instead. I realize that me not giving away some titles may have played a role in this, but by the time I gave them away, the damage was already done, and soon I had a demand letter on my desk. I fought too hard to get here, so of course I'm not giving this up. And that turned out to be the right call because, just my luck, the leader of this rebellion was traveling with a small army near one of my armies. I was just blown away. Barely a month after starting the war, the rebel leader was sitting in my jail cell and his entire rebellion fell apart. At that point, I was starting to believe I'd be able to overcome this time of crisis. I started planning my future by having my oldest son Zacharias marry the powerful Duchess of Raska, Theodosia. I'd make this a grand wedding so I could rebuild relationships with my nobility. They may have doubt in my right to rule, considering we're in year 7 of the subjugation of Pontus, and I still have armies dealing with that instead of the 30,000 Crusaders coming in from Hungary. The peasants around my capital feel similar and start their own uprising. However, little did they know that despite the complications I'm having here, I'm focusing on the right problem, because God has his own plan for the Crusaders. Count Bernard died of pneumonia while in a siege camp, which invalidated that entire invasion. The Lord was on our side, and the Empire was now safe from those devious Catholics. Unfortunately for our Emperor Greg, the Lord was not going to help him with Pontus, and 8 years into the invasions, the Turks continued to resist Byzantine control. The stress about this bungled war was definitely getting to him, and soon he became melancholic. Greg's confidence was shattered. He felt like he didn't deserve this crown. He only lasted this long out of sheer luck. On August 22nd, 1268, as he was walking around his capital, Greg was faced with another consequence of his ineptness, with a cultural fanatic managing to get past most of his security to directly attack him. He tried to run away like last time, having his bodyguard buy him time, but a part of his mind believed that he deserved this and didn't let him run too fast, allowing the assassin to reach him. At only 40 years old, Basilius Gregorios had passed from this world, his legacy being a lesson that the ability to take power doesn't qualify a man to know how to wield it. Zacharias II would now have to clean up his father's messes. Almost immediately though, Zach is given the tragic news that the peasant rebels have overrun the capital and killed his brother Cosmas. Before dealing with the rebels, Zach was gonna wrap up the Pontus War, since after 9 years, we had finally worn down the defenders to the point where we could fully occupy their land. This took way too long, but finally, on October 28th, 1269, we got control of our de jure lands. The peasants sat comfortably in Constantinople, ruining my great capital, but unaware of the amount of pain I was sending their way. When my veteran soldiers arrived, we made short work of this rabble, and for the first time in a decade, the empire was at peace. Now, it was time to do some proper realm management. First, I needed to go through with this grand wedding my dad wanted. As the new ruler of the empire, I wanted to make a very positive impression on the realm and hopefully make some friends. The Mongols hear that I'm looking for friends though and offer me their own form of friendship, but I can't say this is what I meant. When the wedding starts, Duchess Theodosia is not happy to see me when she arrives, but if we're gonna have to spend the rest of our lives together, then we might as well try to like each other. The ceremony proceeds quickly, both the bride and groom say I do, and then the actual fun could begin at the banquet. We spend our time feasting, drinking, and dancing with our guests, making friends and learning about people, but as the party comes to a close, the guests guide Zach and Theodosia to a bedchamber to consummate the marriage. They actually wanted to watch us in the bed, and Theodosia was not about putting on a show for these people. So we got some privacy and had our intimate moment. All in all, the wedding went very well, and Zach made a great impression upon his vassals and some neighboring kings. Not long after the wedding, Theodosia tells me she's pregnant, so soon Zach will have an heir. She will give birth to a little boy that I will name David. Zach wants to show his strength as a ruler in battle, so he requests a report on the neighboring Arabian Empire to see what they're working with. But right after that, he gets word of an outbreak of Georgian fever, and his personal physician has botched our plague prevention. Since Zach is very interested in not dying, he isolates himself from the world. However, to certain people, I'm now a stationary target for the people scheming to kill me. Fortunately, my spy master is very competent. In addition to giving me a solid report on the Arabs, which shows victory is very possible, he brings forward one of the agents planning my demise, who I will quickly dispose of. Despite my family's isolation though, Typhus manages to breach our house's walls and claim the life of my firstborn David. For now, my future lies in his brother Isakios, and it's not like he's gonna be my last child. With the Georgian fever subsiding, I check in on the Arabian Empire, and for some reason, they're trying to take over India. So I figure this is as good a time as any to jump them for land. I wanted to do as much damage as I could to our historical enemies, and I figured ripping the riches of Egypt from them would deal irreversible damage. Tens of thousands of my soldiers set sail to land around the mouth of the Nile, and as they landed, the king of Galicia Volnia probably thought similar to me, seeing I'm distracted in a war, and jumped on me for some of his claimed land. He would get his in time, but for now, I would focus on Egypt. The Arabs were so committed to their Indian wars that I didn't have to fight any major battles during my occupation of Egypt. After sieging all the major settlements in the area, I forced them to accept that this land was mine and Byzantine rule had officially returned to Egypt. My army quickly sailed back to the capital to engage the Galician invaders, but as soon as we started properly engaging them in battle, Muslim rebels rose up in Egypt, not willing to accept my rule. I know I need to deal with that relatively soon, but my armies are already next to Galicia, so I fight them next. However, after that battle, I feel confident that I could send a small detachment of 10,000 men to restore order in Egypt without screwing over this war. Soon after the army lands, they move to end this heathen outburst. I pounce on a small army, but they are soon reinforced with another 10,000 men. Despite their numbers though, they're unable to overcome the discipline of the Byzantine soldiers, and we end the battle victorious. Unfortunately, that wasn't even half their total army. there were 25,000 more troops further upstream, and they were eager to avenge their defeated brethren. Sadly, Byzantine discipline wasn't good enough to overcome a nearly 3-to-1 numbers disadvantage. This was such a humiliating defeat for Zacharias, he even briefly contemplated just surrendering to the rebels in the aftermath, but seeing what they wanted, he knew he had to double down and win this war. We had deep pockets here in Constantinople, so I hired the largest mercenary groups I could to reassemble an army that could take down that heathen scum for good. During the rebellion, health standards fell to a point that there was an outbreak of tuberculosis that they're calling Zacharias' coughs to top off my humiliation. Well, good thing I'm mainly sending mercenary soldiers down to Egypt. A new army of nearly 16,000 men arrived as the rebels were trying to breach Cairo, and this time I felt more confident about my odds of victory. We had the quality and we had the defensive advantage. It was a slaughter. By the end of November, the rebels' dream of an independent Muslim Egypt was crushed. When the Mercs left Egypt to fight the Galicians, they quickly peaced out. And my next move was to continue the expansion of the empire towards the holy city of Jerusalem. I of course would be going after the Crusader Kingdom of Jerusalem, who I'm actually really surprised lasted this long. I had to declare for the county of Gaza first, since that was the only war goal available for me. As you could probably guess, they are not capable of fighting me, so that county is soon mine. My son, Isakios, soon comes of age, and the boy needs a wife. I look at powerful families in the realm to find an eligible lady, and I noticed that Strategisa Valeria of the Komnenos Dukas family has a daughter. I know Valeria is a powerful lady, but I have no information about her daughter. Nevertheless, I take a shot in the dark to arrange the marriage, only to get jump scared by the fact that that daughter wasn't even a year old. For obvious reasons, this relationship ain't gonna work out, so I break off the betrothal between Isakios and Irene. Valeria takes that very personally, that I don't want my son betrothed to an infant, and says this is the beginning of a rivalry and conflict between our houses. Lesson learned to never take random shots like that again. From now on, I'll find possible wives by inviting single ladies to feasts. Once again, we have another plague in the empire. This time, measles. The whole family gets it, and sadly, I lose one daughter to the disease. The only good news we had during this time is one of my dukes going out and reclaiming the site of Antioch for us, further strengthening the Orthodox religion. Now, as soon as the measles outbreak went away, it got followed up by smallpox, and of course, they're calling it Zacharias' pox. I tried my best to prepare, but this plague had no mercy. Hell, at this point, I've had 10 kids, and already half of them have died of disease. You'd think I'd suffered enough, but no, this plague is gonna take yet another child from me. Disease ain't the only thing out to kill us though. My spy master tells me that Valeria is planning to kill me because I broke up that betrothal. Obviously, I'm not gonna let that stand, but I don't want to fight a war to jail her, so I strip her of her titles. I'm gonna give her the false hope that this is the end of my wrath, but actually, I'm gonna be scheming to kill her too. When it comes to my kids, I get a 1-2 punch of bad news. One of my daughters named Margarita, she becomes hunchbacked. And right after that, my heir, Isakios, dies from tuberculosis, so my lineage is just looking better and better, ain't it? Anyways, Valeria turns out to not be my only op out there. Even though I have a good relationship with him, my Marshal, Duke Nicodem, is involved in a scheme to overthrow me. But you know, in hindsight, can I really be surprised that a guy named The Corrupt took a payment to help overthrow me? It's like getting mad at a cat for chasing a mouse. Oh, and what a surprise, he's friends with Valeria. I wonder who talked him into this. Still, just because it's in his nature doesn't mean I'm letting that slide. Nico Dim is Nico done. After asserting my dominance, the streets are calling me the Bear. Next up, the bear is gonna be moving to reclaim the holy city of Jerusalem for the Empire. While my armies march over, I overhear two children who are clearly into Margarita and formed a bit of a love triangle over her. But upon seeing who these kids are, I think my daughter is capable of doing better than these walking skeletons. After that, I figured I waited enough time to do something about Lady Valeria and finally executed my attack. Unfortunately, despite my planning, my assassin fumbled it at the 11th hour, waking up the woman before he killed her in bed, so he had to make a run for it before he was caught. Since she was gonna be on edge for a while after that, I decided to just let the scheme go. As expected, Jerusalem didn't take much effort to capture, and on August 20th, 1300, the Holy City was under the protection of the Romans once again. Very quickly after that, Zach gets the possessed trait. I thought we were doing God's will here, but looks like I'm getting punished for it. With this condition and the fact that Zach is getting up there in age, I really needed to think about my succession. So to make sure the Empire does well after Zach's passing, he elevated his last son, Zacharias III, to co-emperor. I realized that at this point, I'm only one holy site away from ending the Christian schism. All I need is Rome, and fortunately, I'm not that far away from it. Once I take this county from the Duke, I'll have a border with the papacy and be able to take Rome in a war. Catholicism as a whole seems totally fine with my actions. Hell, the Emperor of the HRE wants to marry my daughter Margarita, and obviously with such an alliance, nobody could stand against me. On May 1st, 1305, I begin the war to take the holy city of Rome. The Pope is fighting alone on this one, so I don't send that much to deal with him, mainly my retinues. As the troops prepare for their campaign though, Zacharias III finally came of age, being an expert in intrigue. I was confident that he would be a capable heir that would continue to uphold the great Palaiologos name. Back to Italy, my soldiers were tearing down Rome's walls, and the Pope knew he had to do something to stop me, so he threw all his men at my army. Unfortunately, the superior numbers aren't enough to break the siege. My men are better armed and trained, so they easily cleave their way through the heretic forces. After this great victory against the false idol, I'm deemed worthy to consecrate my bloodline. Zacharias II will be known worldwide as a paragon, and soon this paragon will reclaim the last holy site for Orthodoxy. After centuries, we have finally restored all 5 seats of the Orthodox Pentarchy to Byzantine rule. Basilius Zacharias II would soon end the Great Schism between Orthodoxy and Catholicism. Now, Orthodoxy would be seen as the true faith of Christianity, and Zach would add yet another legend seed to his collection. With the papacy dismantled, Catholicism as a whole would rapidly disintegrate across Europe, with Orthodoxy taking its place. Zach would also make sure to take a lot of victory laps in Constantinople, but his mood was dampened once more with the news that his daughter Margarita died in childbirth, delivering the Kaiser's first kid. Things would soon start looking down for Zach. He begins suffering from a terrible illness, but with a little remedy, he doesn't let that slow him down too much. He would be tested once more while visiting a run-down tower. One of the courtiers who was with him, named Gabriella, had an assassin attempt to kill her by pushing her off the run-down tower, but she managed to push the guy off first. However, that assassin managed to pull her to the edge, and she was hanging for dear life. With only him nearby, Zach sprung to the rescue to help her, but as she grabbed Gabriella and brought her to safer grounds, the floor collapsed, and the pair had a bit of a fall. Not a fatal one at least, but it wasn't a pretty sight afterwards. For a while, Zach's doctors weren't sure he was gonna make it, but despite everything against him, he managed to make it through those injuries. Unfortunately, not everyone around him would be as lucky. Zach's wife Theodosia died from a seizure at 58 years old. They'd been married for 40 years, and the Basilius was devastated. In the aftermath of that, Zach gets a surprising letter of condolences from Lady Valeria, who wants to bury the hatchet, and at this point, he said, sure, why not? You know, I kind of forgot the Mongols were still around since they've pretty much left me alone this whole time. They asked if I wanted to be a tributary once, I refused, and they just respected my wishes. It's crazy. The bad news just keeps coming though. I lose another daughter, Constantine, to childbirth complications. I know the medieval mortality rate was crazy, but man, I had 11 kids, and only 2 of them are alive now. It looks like I'm gonna be joining those 9 other kids soon enough though. I feel another wave of sickness, and it's clear that this is no ordinary cold or flu. Upon further investigation, my doctors figure out that I have cancer, so my time remaining on Earth will be very short. At least Zacharias II can say he accomplished a lot during his rule. However, something had gone wrong in the chain of succession. My heir wasn't my son Zacharias III anymore, but instead some random distant cousin named Helios II. Apparently, Zach III had moved to manage my wife Theodosia's Duchy of Raska after she passed, and I guess that messed things up. Also, some dude was trying to remove him as co-emperor too. My son is in quite the situation. But before I could fix anything, Basilius Zacharias II died from cancer, and Helios was set to take over the emperor's throne. But this didn't sit right with me. That should have gone to Zach III, so I'm gonna play as him and get him what he deserves. My first thought was murdering Helios so I could step up, but the dude immediately kicked me from my spy master role, so that was not gonna be easy. At least I still had a decent amount of power as the co-emperor, so perhaps in time I could build up enough power to get Helios to step down. Until that time happens, I just gotta play the game. However, as I'm fighting this war to remain co-emperor, the enemy Duke Eudokia knows that she won't beat me here, but has one last card to play to sabotage my ambitions. She goes to the Patriarch and gets him to excommunicate me from the church. This woman dragged my name through the mud and left a stain I can't get off. When I got to bring her in after the end of the war, I had to lash out. Yeah, this isn't gonna help me make more friends in the Empire, but it's what she deserves. I try to talk things out with the Patriarch to let me back in the church, but bro does not like me. I guess, allegedly, Zach III may have been abusing his powers as co-emperor for a while, so people didn't feel like doing him a solid. On the bright side, I think I figured out the problem with why Zach wasn't in the running for emperor before. The Duchy of Raska didn't have the administrative government, so I think when he took over that from his mom, it took him out of the succession line. At least right after I fix this, I'm the top candidate for the Byzantine throne again. I don't want to wait for the old man to croak, so I wanted to speed up his demise. However, upon further evaluation, nobody wants to work with me, so I have to call it. Some may say that's for the best, and I should be playing the long game to win the hearts and minds of the vassals in the Empire, but in a moment to really think about my priorities, it just feels like a waste. I'm not getting any younger here. I don't want to wait till I'm 50 years old or older just to get something I should have already had. I'm not going to be patient about this. That is my crown and I want it. This greatly stressed me out though. I tried to do a feast to relieve my head, but all the pressure is just too much. It's so bad that I have a mental breakdown in front of my 5-year-old son. It's clear to me at this point, Zach needs some vacationing time. I sent him on a hunt next, and while it could have gone better, at least he's relieving the stress. Next, he goes on a pilgrimage to a holy site in Italy, a much needed spiritual journey that finally knocked his stress down to level 1. Zach was well on the journey of self-improvement, but once he arrived back home and greeted his pregnant wife, something felt off about her attitude. He suspected that she had an affair while he was away and started looking into what happened while he was gone. His sources did not tell him good things. My wife, Philomena, confessed to her cheating and named the man who did it, Strategos Tuma the Catholic of Cairo. He is my brother-in-law because he married my last sister, who apparently also died. Oh my god, it's actually only me now. Well, I'm putting this woman on blast for cheating, and the Basilius does me a solid and throws her in jail. Tuma also now despises me for exposing him to the Empire, but I'm not done with this guy yet. Out of spite, I use all the influence I've built up as co-emperor to get this guy stripped of all his titles. Tuma here is now looking kinda homeless. Philomena worms her way out of prison, but I can't really say I won her back around my court. Unfortunately, I can't divorce her though, due to me being excommunicated, so I actually am stuck with her and the bastard child she'll give birth to. Or at least I thought so. When Philomena was giving birth, things went horribly. Her screams of pain were followed by an eerie silence, and the midwife soon emerged from the room to confirm the worst had happened. Zach needed to get his mind off of this tragedy, so he went on another hunt. During that hunt, he got news that the Mongol Empire was shattering, so at least the world can breathe a bit easier now. Unfortunately, I also got news that there is somebody scheming to kill me, but when is somebody not trying to do that? I tell the boys we're going for a wolf and we chase after some. I separate them for a brief water break, and while I'm relaxing, an arrow whizzes by and hits the ground by my feet, almost as if someone was intentionally aiming at me. Nevertheless, I reunite with my party and try to chase down the wolves. Unfortunately, we completely lose them, so this hunt is a dud. When I get back to my manor, I can't say things are getting better for Zach. My patriarch continues to show his disdain for me by giving a neighboring duke a claim on my land. And she is much stronger than I am, so there's a good chance she'll act on that claim. But as Zach goes to bed, dreading this possible war, his worries are soon relieved when he has an unexpected visitor to his bedroom. Zach spots a shadowy figure creeping up to his bed, but before he could react, the visitor's dagger had already pierced his heart. At 35 years old, Zacharias III, the last of the 11 children of Zacharias II, is dead. Now, you may wonder, who was this visitor that killed me? And well, I guess it isn't a big surprise after I exposed his affair and took his entire life from him. Tuma wanted to get back at me, and when he heard that his former lover along with his child died in childbirth, he held me responsible. The Lord was punishing me for my heresy, and it cost poor Tuma dearly. So he figured it was time for me to face judgment by God and go to hell before I dragged anyone else down with me. And with that, I think that's the end of my story with Byzantium here. It's amazing how you can be at the top of the world at one moment and so quickly it's all gone. I hope y'all enjoyed this story. I had a lot of fun creating it. Remember, if y'all want me to do more CK3 stuff, to smash that like button. I'm definitely down to do something else with this mod list if y'all show the support. I got a few good ideas, like if we get 10,000 likes, there's this really cool Crusader start I could do in Jerusalem that I'll get out for you soon. But if you have your own ideas, let me know in the comments. Thank you to my wonderful alumni on Patreon supporting this amazing content. I really appreciate the support y'all give me there. That's all for me today. I'll see you soon though. Bye bye.